folks. A happy, blessed Litha or Litha, whichever way you pronounce it, to you, if you celebrate, of course. Today I want to discuss a message from Spirit on this special day. I am working with the Wildwood Tarot first, and in a bit I will pull out the Sufi Wisdom Oracle in order to finish off this message. There are no reversals with how I deal with the Wildwood Tarot, but if reversals get popped in, I will take them as is. I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. We have the Pole Star. At this point, we're in a journey with no guide but the stars above us. There is something about the astrology around this particular summer solstice that you might need to pay attention to. So check out your horoscope and see what kind of advice it has for you. I love astro.com for its daily horoscopes that it gives. It's not just daily horoscopes. It also gives long-term horoscopes for slower moving planets like Saturn, for instance. But right now we're walking through a dark-ish forest that isn't completely dark. This is a time for healing after having gone through some really rough stuff, ostensibly with the Tower. The Wildwood Tarot is a little bit different when it rearranges where the Tower is placed in the major arcana, but this indicates that we need to rely on our inner light, our inner guidance, our intuition in order to navigate the next steps and years up ahead. This is an interesting, a portentous summer solstice is what I'm getting from Spirit, because this marks a turning point for at least for the United States collective. And honestly, this reading is for any pagan who celebrates Litha anywhere in the world, but specifically for American pagans, this is kind of a turning point. And I understand completely. I'm identifying with that. Yesterday just kind of felt weird, kind of like I was going to be missing things that I haven't let go of yet. There's definitely like future converging with the past and the present at this particular time, at least the way that I'm feeling things, okay? So when things look dark, we've got the stars above us, the sun, the moon, the stars above us to help guide us, because we're not completely alone and we're not without illumination on our paths, which at times feels often so dark that we can't see more than a few steps ahead of us. We're not alone here. I'm taking from the top of the deck. The Pole Star was from the bottom of the deck. This is the Two of Bows, and this is decision. This particular man is grabbing a hold of two wands, which are on fire, two staves, and he's making a choice. Which one is he going to take? And now that he's grasped these wands, what will he do now? What is he dreaming of doing? We have a couple of directions to take at this particular point. It is a kind of fork in the road for everybody, not just for the pagans celebrating Litha this particular day. It's for everybody. We have a choice to take, and notably there is a starry sky behind this motif with this man grabbing these flaming wands. There's a starry sky here too. So our guides, our ancestors, the universe, our deities are watching what we do at this particular point, and we all have choices individually what we can do, but also as a collective. We have choices on which direction we're going to go, and we need to be cautious of the directions we take, and we need to be sure that they are the best for our highest good. There are going to be more tempting decisions to make that feel easier in some way, and they may not always be the best decisions. The most intuitive decisions may not always be the easiest ones, okay? We have here the Seven of Vessels, the Seven of Cups. This is mourning. This is pouring one out for how things used to be in the past. So I would call this a subset of the Death card right here. Now that old things are falling away quickly, we still need to mourn the past and the potential of what could have been. But at the same time, we need to forge forward and continue to make the best choices that we possibly can in spite of what's happened in the past. And understand also that death is necessary in order for new things to come in. Consider death not so much the end of something as the transformation of energy from one thing into another. Okay? Who are we going to choose to be? Our intuition will guide us, but we have to listen to it. And then we have to obey it even when it's difficult. Okay? We've got some really powerful decisions to make. The end has already arrived. And in many cases, if you're aware, if you're conscious, you already understand that there's a lot to mourn when it comes to, at least for the USA Collective, there's a lot to mourn for what could have been. But instead, things have taken a particular direction. The timelines have split. I'm going to say around the time of Pluto in Aquarius, that's when things changed for better and for worse. Okay? We've got another 2 here. Just like with 2 of bows and decision, now I'm starting a third row, but I'm going to hold these up together. Now we've got a choice to make, and we need to be aware that we need to have the most informed choices possible. Here is how my cards are stacked. So while we are using our intuition to guide the road ahead of us all, for us all, we need to be aware that there may be some choices that we could make that aren't well informed. In this particular picture, there is a stack of gold coins weighing equally together with a feather. And that doesn't make sense, but she doesn't know that. This entity doesn't know that. She's blinded to this, and she can't fire any arrows in a particular direction because right now that's not what she should be doing. She needs to be contemplating and using her intuition in order to make the best possible decision, but can she do that if she doesn't have all the best information possible? This is the 2 of Swords in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. Ideally, we should be using our intuition to help us figure out how to move forward, but for a lot of us, there's the real potential that we can make missteps, not because we're intentionally trying to go a different way, but because we don't have all the information yet, or the information that we've gathered is old, out of date, turns out to be misinformation. Your intuition is going to help you here, and keep in mind that your intuition may tell you things that don't make logical sense. And you might be surrounded by people who say, that's fucking stupid. What are you doing? This is the time to not tap into others' accountability, if you will, because they cannot be your intuition for you. Another human cannot be your guides, your ancestors for you. And by the way, your elevated ancestors, not just any ancestor, but your elevated ancestors need to have say in what you're doing at this particular time, and they're going to be able to help you make even difficult decisions that don't seem logical at the time, but later on you will see the value, the wisdom of why they guided you down a particular path, even when it was indeed the road less traveled, even when you had no traveling companions alongside you. That is the Fool, by the way. I know that my shitty camera doesn't show this particular entity very well, but this is the Fool on the Fool's journey. You're not alone here by any means. The universe wants to guide you to the best possible decisions, but be aware that they may not always be the most logical decisions. Sometimes the mind becomes our own worst enemy, and we need to be aware of that. Here we have the Hierophant in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, also known as the Ancestor. So, more information on, yes, you definitely need to tap into ancestors and guides on your way down this particular path. It's going to be different for everybody. And keep in mind that you may have some people in your life who make decisions according to their intuition that don't make sense to you. Be aware that maybe this is the time for you to be a bit hands-off and not give advice, but just to be supportive. But also be aware that the ancestor wants to guide you to the best decision possible. You have the energy to grab, to carpe diem, so to speak, okay? So what will you do with that energy? Be aware that there is the possible for misdirection in spite of your best intentions, but the ancestor is going to guide you along that particular path. This is an invitation. For some of you, you may be just starting your spiritual journey in earnest, and this is the ancestor reaching out saying, this is a good time to get in touch with your ancestors for real. Summer solstice is a deeply powerful time. It's the longest day and the shortest night of the year. So for some of you, this might be the first time that you come in contact with a guide who has been guiding you, not secretly, but they haven't revealed themselves to you just yet because perhaps you were not of the spiritual, emotional, mental maturity to actually communicate with them. And that might be changing now, okay? So there are plenty of pick-a cards here on YouTube that will guide you to your elevated ancestors, to your guides who might be working with you, possibly even some angels, okay, depending on what you believe in. Knight of Bows, this is the fox. This is the potential for deviousness, and it lands alongside the ancestor and the two of arrows. So there may be people who are willing to lead you astray deliberately, help you make bad choices because they don't want to see you succeed. They don't want to see you elevated because it gives them an inferiority complex, which, by the way, there's nothing you can do about. It is up to them to heal that inferiority complex and to heal the ego enough to delete it, to let it go. Keep in mind that there will be people who lead you astray, and there may be some people also who do some real damage as they themselves are mourning the end of an era. Especially if you're in the USA Collective, you might be coming in contact, whether you like it or not, with people who want to do a whole lot of damage. One of the things associated with this Knight of Bows, the fox, is that this is associated with gang violence. And Spirit has been warning us now for a couple of months that there will be people in this particular time period in the USA Collective who are encouraged by the current regime to become domestic terrorists in many ways, to take violence into their own hands and to spew it across the people who they feel deserve it the most. That is also something else that I see the potential for mourning, is that potential for mourning about, I should say, is that this is going to be literally mourning a sense of safety, possibly letting go some people who might have fallen to violence, for instance. Not the people who are committing it, but might have fallen to people who were committing it. I'm wondering, my mind is being drawn to the Minnesota gunman who gunned down those, was it Missouri? One of those M states, I'm sorry, who gunned down those Democrat politicians, for instance. There are tens of thousands more people just like them who are ready to commit violence in order to just feel powerful. Not for any deeper meaning, not necessarily for saving the United States or anything like that, but just because they want to own the libs in the worst ways imaginable. Be aware of this. Don't move in fear, but do have situational awareness. And if you're going to protest at this time, be on a very high alert, please. Okay? Knight of Bows is warning us to just be cautious of bad actors who want to cause as much damage as possible. The ancestor wants to guide you away from this. And there's also the very real possibility that for a few people, you are called to fight these Knights of Bows, Knights of Wands, Knights of Fire, who want to burn things to the ground. You might be called to defense, if that makes any sense. And that's not going to be a message for everybody, but for a few people, it will be just exactly that. Okay? We have the World Tree. This is the closing card, or closes out the major arcana. This is the world. Okay, in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith. Something is coming to an end. I'm starting a third row here. Something is coming to an end here. This pole star is leading us to a journey's end, if you will. It is a kind of destination, but the journey is, not an easy one. It is one where we need to have the best kind of information that we can possibly have, and sometimes realize that the psychic downloads that the universe gives us may not make logical sense. In any case, something is coming to a close this particular summer solstice, and we need to be highly aware of that. There is going to be a time for crying, to letting things go, because once things end, they don't go back to how things were, especially with this destructive cycle that the United States Collective is currently experiencing. In some sense, the cycle does continue, because this just brings us back to zero, what we have here with the Fool. But I haven't drawn the Fool card, so I'm going to say that something is ending, and it quite possibly is going to be a painful end. There is the real sensation that I'm getting from Spirit that Trump is going to absolutely kick things into high gear, that he's already deeply upset, that he's already a very confused individual who we can see cognitively declining at a very rapid pace, and yet people are giving him as much power as possible, okay? And they're saying that they want to look at Biden's mental stability. He's not in office anymore. People need to be looking at Trump's mental stability, but they're not, because that would mean asking uncomfortable questions and possibly yielding power to people that they don't want to yield to. Okay? So things are definitely, I'm getting, may definitely kick up in terms of power. This is not the time to despair, to get too far into your emotions. This is the end of an era. Don't forget that. And remember that Trump is not in good health. Okay, he's not always going to be there. And also, he was the Trojan horse for the really powerful people who make the really powerful, life-upending decisions. There are more powerful people, specifically the Heritage Foundation, who are going to do more damage. And it's going to be up to us to decide what we're going to do in light of their societal pressure. Okay? After the World card, we have the Eight of Arrows, the Struggle card. In many ways, this is going to be the end of an era of things being easy, feeling good, stability. We have Uranus and Gemini coming up next month, and actually, we're just a few days. I believe it switches into Uranus and Gemini on July 7th, if I'm not mistaken, okay? And that's going to be the warlike. Remember that Uranus and Gemini was associated with World War II, a war that radically changed American history, again, for better and for worse. It's a huge turning point in American history, and I see that happening once again. Keep in mind that on top of Uranus and Gemini, we've got Neptune and Aries that occurred at the end of March of this year, and we've already seen people fantasizing about what kinds of violence they would like to take and actually acting on it, okay? It is a different energy from Neptune and Pisces, when people would just fantasize and dream about what they want to do. Neptune Aries is about putting action to those dreams that people had fantasized about before. Again, for better and for worse. We also have Saturn in Aries, which is about loss to people who love to charge forward, who love to make war. And we also have Pluto in Aquarius. And that started in November, I believe the November 19th last year. Upending, life-changing, black and white, no in-between, black swan events, rebellions, revolutions, power to the collective over power to the elite billionaire class. This is really, really heady stuff, and I think that things are just going to get a little bit crazier. Now, for the USA Collective, because we've got some powerful decisions, personal decisions to make about how we are going to conduct ourselves over the next several years. It's not just this particular summer solstice season or the next few months. It's over the next few years. We need to keep in mind that this is going to be hard. For a lot of people, it is scary to consider how hard the path is going to be up ahead. You are encouraged to take things one small step at a time. No one said that you have to rush, but also keep in mind that sometimes that choice is not going to be in your hands. And when it isn't in your hands, you need to ask yourself in advance, who are you going to be? When life is just hard, are you still going to reach for your best and your highest good? Are you going to use your intuition to take you through those hard times and still do the best you possibly can, honestly, from the heart? And for a lot of people, that's going to be hard, and they're going to give in to what's easiest and possibly most destructive. Don't allow those people to drag you down, even if they're a romantic partner, your children, your friends, your family. Don't allow them to drag you down. You must stay on your own path at all costs. We're going through hard times, and that doesn't mean that you don't deserve to continue to stay on your own path. Cut away what is no longer necessary, mourn what has been cut away for a time, and then keep following the ancestor that you see here at the center of this particular spread. Last and not least, keep in mind that there is abundance up ahead for everybody. You've got the Six of Bows here, but also keep in mind that it will feel like that the good is losing because the violent bad actors will be rewarded by the regime that's currently in place, because the regime is encouraging that kind of domestic terrorism. Don't let that dissuade you from your path. It will be hard. I can already feel that for some of you. It's going to be hard not to give in to despair. For some of you, some rare few of you, it's going to be hard not to take yourself off this mortal coil. Once things get really swinging into action, it's going to be hard. But remember that even though this entity is struggling through a snowy landscape and is having arrows shot at them too, there is still rest and abundance at the end of the road. And notice that in the Six of Bows, there are no people in the picture because they haven't arrived yet. You haven't arrived yet. This marks the start of a very difficult journey for a lot of you. But never forget that the rewards are going to be bountiful for those who were faithful, and that the rewards for the violent bad actors will turn out to be dust in their mouths, will turn out to be nothing at the end of the day. Don't let them win by showing how upset you are. Don't let them win by showing how much you mourn the past. Okay? Do that with your ancestors, with your guides, your elevated ancestors, and with the universe. That's where you need to be pouring out your heart. But for some of you, you've got some violent bad actors in your midst who you don't see that way because they haven't really shown their very true colors yet. I'm getting with a lot of these domestic terrorists, once they see things really pop off, that's when they're going to be like sleeper cell agents in a sense. Not the literal actual sense, but in the sense where they feel like it's time for them to act. And that's where their true violent colors come onto display. Cry it out when you need to by yourself. But be aware that you've got people quite possibly in your midst who will be happy to see you in such a rough place, and they might do things to needle you further away from your particular path, and you might be tempted to strike back. Don't do this. Allow the universe to deal with these bad actors. Don't do it yourself. Again, some of you rare few people may be called to defense, but never to attack. Always to defense and never to attack. Okay? I respect that these might be some really difficult messages for some of you to hear, because a lot of us, myself included, in spite of what Spirit has told us, this has been hard. There have been multiple times this year where I felt like I just wanted to give up. I've asked, what's the fucking point? And yet life goes on because we have something important to do in this lifetime. This is a turning point for not just the USA Collective, but for the whole world. And if we can kind of pull in the Maharishi effect, where there are people meditating and leaning into their best, their highest good, in spite of everything going on around them, violent bad actors included, that's when the whole world gets elevated. Okay? For better, and not necessarily for worse, okay? I'm going to move on to the Sufi Wisdom Oracle. Once again, I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. Speak out. Communicate and resolve the conflicts. Okay? There will be occasions when you get to be a peacemaker, and that is another kind of defense. And for some of you, that means stepping outside of your comfort zone, because normally you're a pretty quiet person. This is not the time to be quiet. If the universe pushes you towards making peace in a particular situation, even if the situation doesn't resolve in the best way possible, you still did your part. And that's the most important thing to do at this time. Determination, I'm pulling from the bottom of the deck. Perseverance leads to fortune. Stay the course. This references the pole star here. Stay the course no matter what. Stick to the path and you're going to be okay. It will be hard. I'm not saying that it won't be, but choosing to be determined about the spiritual path that you're taking in spite of everyone around you saying you're stupid, this isn't smart, this isn't logical. This is the time to tune out those voices and do what you can to continue unimpeded down your spiritual path. And that includes possibly turning off the news. That includes possibly staying away from a protest if you know that you're going to get heated enough that you could become someone who chooses to attack instead of defend those. Sometimes it's about taking time to yourself and spending the time in meditation, resting, doing yin yoga, for instance, or doing qigong. Qigong is great for working with psychic flow. I highly recommend that. I love doing qigong, and there are lots of excellent free videos here on YouTube that can get you started, okay? Just try it out, see if it would work well for you. And last and not least, limitation is power. Lean into your limitations because there is only so much that you can do. Keep in mind that for some of you, that's one of the best things that can happen to you. Because when you are limited, it invites you to take other higher quality routes that you wouldn't have taken if you hadn't been limited. So in those particular cases, even if you feel constrained and restrained, and for some of you, your Saturn is transiting through Aries in a really powerful place in your natal chart, pay attention to that. There may be something about your personality that people see that gets trimmed away, and that might be a really painful thing for you, and that might be a painful thing for the people around you. Know this, you are meant to be on this road that's less traveled for a very high quality, incredible reason. You could be changing at least the history around you, if not changing a small part of human history. Or it may not be small, it could be a large part of human history. You don't know unless you sometimes allow a door to close and a window to open. And you might grieve that a door was closed, but don't let that grief keep you from getting out through a window or getting out through the back door. Maybe the front door closed. Maybe you need to take a back door. It's up to you, okay? Whatever you take from this reading, know that these are not the end times. I'm getting from Spirit, they're laughing. They're like, no, not by any means. You've got tens of thousands more years for the human race before end times start to like cycle on through. Okay, by no means are these the end times. However, this is the end of an era, and that is something that needs to be taken seriously. Summer solstice, if you feel weird around this particular time, you're not alone, and you're not batshit insane. I felt that yesterday, and it was a really powerful feeling, enough for me to do a reading. And listen, I got the death card. There's an end of an era coming for me personally, and you might be no different. Okay? Just because you're pulling the death card quite possibly on a frequent basis, like I am, for instance, know that that doesn't mean necessarily a literal actual death, but it does mean a powerful transformation, the end of one era, the start of a new one. And keep in mind, when the new era starts, there's no going back to the old era. For some of you, it will be because you don't want to go back to the old era, and under no way in hell would you go back anyway. Okay? Please be safe no matter what you choose to do. Please choose your best and your highest good, no matter where your external environment takes you, no matter what external factors do to you. Stick to the spiritual path at all costs. Bolded, underlined, italicized, at all costs. Okay? Thank you for watching. Happy solstice.